Dr. Jazz.
Man,
Dr.
you must be
Jazz.
the busiest man on the planet. I'm like,
No.
I'm like looking at the records you're doing. I've been following you, and I thought like, okay, I'm quite up to date, but I was like, shit, I'm way behind. And
Mm,
I just listened today to Velvet Revolution, Message in a Bubble, and then I saw Das
mhm.
Kapital has a new record, and
Yes.
with Aki, and but I wanted to start this talk with Velvet Revolution, and especially asking you about your composing. I mean, I know your stuff
Mhm,
since Erdmann, 3000,
mhm.
Frank,
Okay.
and how do you write usually? I listen to Drunk with Happenings many times. It's like a
Yeah.
monkey tune you wrote, and there are some others on that record. What's your process when composing?
Well, there's different approaches. I mean, in the let's say the ideal situation is that I have an idea which usually comes at a time that is where my brain is not um, functioning to do other things, to think about where I have to go and
Yeah,
what I have to do and stuff like that, which is
that's heavy.
mostly when I'm about to fall asleep. Actually, I have the best ideas usually. um, so then I take a note usually of what I have, in my what I hear.
Yeah.
That's really the best thing for me. If I hear something that I imagine the music that I would personally really love to hear and play in
Mhm.
in in reality. So then if I have an idea, and either I can also sing it into the phone or something, or and have this the basic idea of what I'd like to do. Then and then I try to find it on my instrument, which is usually for me the best, because I don't have what do you call it, the absolute hearing. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah.
So I have to. I mean, with
Most of us,
with all
yeah.
the time of playing, yeah. So, but so I'm. I try to find the thing I'm looking for on my instrument, and then um, adding the different elements, and trying it out. Usually, I'm really a try out a
Yeah,
composer.
yeah, yeah. But,
So I could, even if I play with it sometimes, if I write something for a cello, since I don't play cello, but I play a bit guitar, sometimes I would just tune the guitar like a cello, and
okay.
play the notes, or try out on the instrument the things. I have a drum set, I have a piano, of course. I have different instruments, and I have possibilities to record at home. I mean, simple ways, like most of us now, since it's gotten so easy. So that has that process is really for me like a home recording process, I
Yeah.
would say. Also, like, trying things out, and I love that process, because it's just, I've concentration is really on that. And if I have time, sometimes I take time. If I, for example, the tunes I wrote for the Velvet Revolution album, I think I just, booked 2 weeks where I didn't do anything else, and just focused on that. And just, it's such a nice process, like a creative process, just to
Yeah.
plunge into that and be there for like day after day, and just try out things, throw away stuff. I have all these books of notebooks
Ideas, yeah.
where I write stuff, and then I sometimes go back and find an idea. I have an idea maybe, but I think about where could that go? What could that what could make it interesting? So I go in my notebook, and sometimes I find a thing. When we had the lockdowns and all that, I just wrote so much stuff every day. Because there was nothing else to do. So I have like tons of little ideas that still haven't been used, and sometimes I just take one of those and make a combination. So it's really I wouldn't say I'm a composer. I'm more like I'm putting things together. So because composer is a real job, I think. So
no,
it's a really serious. So I mean, I'm trying to do what I can. Let's say.
Yeah.
But I try to put things, to put different elements together, so that that maybe shouldn't be together, but try to.
But that's what composing is in the end, right? You get ideas, you kind of glue them together. If they fit, if they don't, you somehow make it work. And I mean,
yes, I guess, I guess. But I say, when I go to listen to, new music compositions, I feel so. I mean, I get a lot of inspiration from that. Of course, I go to see, like this year, I went to see a couple of concerts with compositions by Jörg Wirtmann, the clarinet player. And it's a big inspiration, like to hear that, with such a great, all these great musicians playing at the Philharmonic in Berlin, and playing this adventurous music. So I get inspiration from that. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if I listen to Stravinsky or whatever, Shostakovich, I'm like, shit, man, that's what composing is. But we do improvise. We're improvisers in the end also. So for us, I guess it's also a starting point to improvise a composition. So that's the
definitely, that's exactly it. It's like a color that you give to to go and then take it, to another place, or
I mentioned Das Kapital before, and you said you play a guitar a little, and I did a record with Hasse, and I love Hasse's playing.
Wow. Okay.
He's such a great guitarist, and you played with Frank before Mobus, so you really must like guitar. Like, what's your story with the Das Kapital? I love the trio, and it's been going on for.
It's still going on. I mean, 20 years, So well, we started when I moved to Paris in 2000, and then. At some point, I met Edouard Perrault in a very small club, and we started playing together. And he said, I met this guitar player, Hasse Poulsen. Let's, I think this is a good idea to meet and play together. And I was just, from there, it was just clear that we had this, I mean, coming from very different backgrounds, somehow a thing just happened, so, and then we just improvised for the first few years, and then did these Hans Eisler two Eisler, even the third one with an orchestra programs, and now the one we did this year, that came out this year, is again an improvised album. So it's a kind of a coming back to the source. It's nice, and we've been on the road a lot together the last few years, not so much, but that's how things evolve, so
go with also in between and stuff.
No.
Beautiful. You come from Germany, otherwise, Daniel, and
yes.
What got you excited for? I mean, we're talking about, I guess, mid '80s or late '80s. When did you say, like, shit, I want to play jazz or improvised music? Did you have a moment, or?
Well, my whole music, I would say, the whole thing with the music somehow was, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a natural thing, but I mean, I don't come from a musician family, but my father bought us instruments. He like just bought stuff to try out things. Maybe that's why I'm still like, trying out things like with any kinds of instruments. I don't know. And then jazz really came. My father, he was a scientist, so we moved to the United States in in the 80s. Yeah, I think I was like 11 or something.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I just had started with the saxophone, the alto saxophone, and then at the school, I was just a regular U.S. school, so they had a big band. Like orchestra, they called it orchestra. But we already played like some of the American songbook stuff. So I got in touch with that quite early, I would say, when I started, and then when I got back to Germany a couple of years later, I was somehow had that was hooked on the jazz thing already a bit, and I always was lucky with my teachers also, I must say that I had the chance to work with a American tenor player who lived in the city of Braunschweig, where then I spent the rest of my adolescence, who was a kind of a, he was somehow he ended up there in that city because he fell in love, and so he was there, and there was this great guy from Philadelphia, and he played free, but also played in the local hip hop band. He was really tough, like the American school. He didn't joke around, but good. And then when I got to Berlin, to the Eisler School, I was studying with Gebhard Ullmann, who was a fantastic teacher.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I love Gebhard. Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
He like had an answer for everything, for me, and just supported my my urge to be a musician who's playing, and so he's really, I was always lucky with that, I must say.
Did you, when you started to play in Berlin, did you immediately start to lead bands? Like, I mentioned Erdmann 3000 before, and like how did those stories happening with you and band leading and becoming part of the scene actually?
Yeah, it was for me pretty obvious that I always, since I already wrote composed music when I was younger. I always had these even when I started, when I was like 14, 15, I had the little bands that I wrote music for, and so it continued. And I met at the school, I met people I played with, and I had a little trio, and then started to, it was that was in the, like, I started studying in Berlin in 93, and there was so many places you could just go and play. I mean, there still is, but there's more people who want to play, I think. So I just went to any place, any cafe, and just said, can we play here? And they usually paid a bit, and so I played my music, pretty much right from the beginning when I was in Berlin, because it was really, there were possibilities, definitely. And with either I had a trio with the bass and drums with two guys from the I was studying with Martin Klein and Matthias Trippner, and then once in a while, when they couldn't do it because I had quite a few gigs, I slowly, started to look for subs, and I was really, I was kind of bold also, I must say. I asked some people.
You have to be, yeah.
I had, for example, Ed Schuller,
who was living in
Berlin, who was subbing in my trio. So, it was just, I just asked, and he said, yeah. So that's it was, nice. I could play with some really fantastic people.
Yeah.
And then, Frank Möbus, I met him at the school. He was teaching there.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I took a lesson with him, and then we just played, and it was just fantastic. So then I invited him as a guest for my trio, and then things evolved like that, and then I made that new band, and he was very involved in that band. Definitely, Frank. It was a really good time. Yeah.
You mentioned the Berlin scene. I know the last 10, 15 years it's blooming. Everyone is moving there.
Yeah. Wow.
It's crazy. But how was it in the 90s? You mentioned there were a lot of concerts, and was it different in a sense, easier or harder?
From what I feel that it was definitely there were less musicians.
Yeah.
It was smaller. You knew of, there were these different scenes, a bit more the improvised scene, the more adventurous jazz, mainstream, but you knew everybody, and everybody was kind of also still connected, so it was now, I'm getting more back to Berlin now, but since I wasn't here so much the last years, I feel that from outside, at least looking at it, that there's so many people from all over the world, which is fantastic. So it's really has just exploded. The scene has just got so much bigger, and there's still a lot of places to play. People are busy, and that hasn't changed. I guess it's different places. Yeah. Maybe it's more difficult. I don't know. I couldn't say.
You're
because I'm just so much older. So I don't know how it is today. If you're in the beginning of your 20s, but I talked to some young people lately. So I talked to this young drummer, and he said it's great, to be in Berlin as a young musician, playing jazz and improvised music. So that's really, I thought that was really good news.
Yeah.
If it's still such a great city to play music and to be able to, he said, it's possible to
make a living.
To make a living with that music. So that's really nice.
Yeah. When did you move to France, by the way?
In 2000.
Already?
2000.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a grant to go to Paris, and
how was that like for you? I know you know a lot of your records you did with Vincent Courtois, and you connected with the French scene, but how was it in the beginning for you when you came to France, a German?
Very difficult.
How did that go? Who were the first connections?
Very difficult. For me, who was integrated in the Berlin, it was really not. It was, so going there was like, wow, I didn't understand what was happening to me, just like, okay. It's because it's very, very different. In Berlin, as I said, this I felt, at least for me, I felt like the scenes were more connected, and in France, I had the feeling that it was more separate. Now it has changed. That has changed also in France, but when I when I went there, was really the jazz, the mainstream, the improvised music. It wasn't really mixed. I had the feeling now that has changed, but so it was kind of difficult. Where do I go?
Yeah.
So the people I knew, I knew very few people and in very different scenes. So I was in the beginning. Yeah, actually, I played with people from very different scenes, and it took quite a while to somehow find my place in that. But yeah, once I mean, I really learned a lot by playing with these great musicians like Vincent, and meeting also with Edouard and Hasse, we just with the whole thing that happened. I mean, I had time also to to do that, and I had time to practice again, which was
it's a good thing sometimes.
At some point I just realized, okay, I have so much time now. I don't have a lot of money, but I have a lot of time. So what do? Well, I practice. So it was a thing where I really noticed at some point I got much better on my instrument. And then thinking about the music, it opened really my vision of where you can go. I was a little bit more narrowed, and then I living in France and playing with French musicians just opened up a whole different world, connected more to definitely to the 20th century classical music.
Yeah, they have a lot of that too.
So that was fantastic, actually. Looking back.
Yeah. Were you able to play your music or still now in Paris? Because when I talk to musicians like Dominique Pifarelli or Bruno Chevillon, or Vincent, everyone is saying that for the music that you play or we play, it's basically Paris is really hard. Like, how was it for you when you moved, or even now if you compare?
Well, I had there was a small club that was somehow that's where I met also Edward, and where I met some of the American. There were the American musicians living in Paris that Steve Potts, he had a like every Wednesday he was playing at this club called Les Sept Lézards. And you could sit in. That was like my weekly thing. I go to the Sept Lézards and sit in with Steve, and there was people like that's where I met John Batch, for example, the drummer.
Yeah.
And some of the French musicians that came there. So that was a really friendly place for me. And after a while, I got my first gig there. And so I kind of asked, of course, start to play with the people I was getting to know. So, but yeah, slowly somehow got to play my stuff also. But it's definitely difficult. I mean, if I have my favorite places in Paris, but it's not easy. There's not so many.
Yeah.
Like just if you want to try out something like in Berlin, you can just do it. I mean, it has to do also with the system of how things work in France, which is the administrative side is more difficult, but it also protects the musician more. So it's, to play a door gig is basically, I mean, it's more difficult to do in France. So everything has to be declared, and it's, you know, it's which is good. It's a good system, you know. But it also has its flaws, of course. So maybe it has to do also with that. I don't know. But and it is a very, very expensive city still, and so small. You know, I mean, it's just everything is so. Some practice rooms, you know, if you go to a rehearsal room, sometimes it's like in the third basement, you know, you just have to walk down, and then you're like in this small, and that's where, oh, this is where we're rehearsing. Okay, in Berlin, you have like, you know, everybody, not everybody, but still, I mean, you have nice, let's say, you have decent, you know, conditions for rehearsing and all that. There's more space. It's just more space. It's with less people. It's much bigger and less people. So it's definitely it's a more
friendly.
It's somehow, I mean, it doesn't have the same. It's a different thing, you know. So Paris has a different energy, also. You know, it's
interesting.
Yeah,
it's funny because considering the history of Paris in the jazz music world, and then how it has changed, or it's different. It's different. I'll put it like that. Yeah.
I mean, you would have to talk to people like John Betch, or, you know, people who knew that time. I don't know. I couldn't say. I mean,
I wanted to ask you also about your story with Aki Takase. And you guys have been playing together for such a long time. When did you start playing with her? And I also listened to Ellington, like which came as a surprise. You know, I mean, not Aki. She's done so much of the old American repertoire, but to hear you play that stuff, I was like, man, you can do that really well. So, like, did you ever go through that I mean, you mentioned the old American songbook, like, but did you have a standard space and studying that stuff?
Yeah, of course I did. I did my my work on the standards. I mean, I did a lot of. I played a lot of standards, but more in a. When I was at the Eisler, when I was studying, there were like so many offers to play standards at like because all the companies were coming to Berlin, and they were all doing the openings, and so I was playing. I could play very, very many gigs just playing standards, standing in a corner of a
like brunch
of, you know, new building or something. But that was a good opportunity to play. But actually, my connection with I would say was the older guys. I just realized that I had this really strong connection with Lester Young. I just recognized that a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, that just came. I was just listening to that. I wasn't really. I mean, I moved back a little bit, and I think in the history, because when I started, I was more like, you know, there was still. It was. I mean, when I started, it was the main man was Michael Brecker.
Oh yeah, exactly. 80s, yeah.
You know, and he was there. You know, he was still around. I saw him many times. And so going back from, actually, I went back step by step, I think. So I went from Brecker to Coltrane, and from Coltrane to Lester Young. I think in my own, at least in my own imagination, that's what I did. I don't know if it really, but for me, that's the way my evolution is more in that.
going back
history.
to that lineage. Yeah, that's important. Yeah. And with Aki, when did you start playing with Aki?
She was teaching she was like guest professor at the Isla. So that's how we met. And she did this ensemble course, we played music by Eric Dolphy and her stuff. And so, and then she asked me to play in her band at the Berlin. She had this Berlin sextet at that point. It was with Rudi Mahal and Tony Buck and I think Henrik Wallster was also in that band. So but that was a band just playing in Berlin in the clubs, And then when I moved to Paris, we stopped playing together, except like occasionally, like here or there, just like when we were invited in the same project. But that happened maybe 3 times in 10 years. And then, like in 2017, I think I was at the Paris airport, and then I ran into Aki. She was just walking by and said, "Hi, Aki." And so we had a coffee. She was taking her plane. I was taking mine. We still had time, so we just had coffee and just, talked. And then she said, "Yeah, come to Berlin. When the next time when you come to Berlin, just call me and we can maybe play a little bit." And then we started playing again, and it was like, okay, this seems to be the right thing, for both of us. So then she made the new band, Japanic, and then we started playing the duo in parallel somehow. So now it's really working with Aki is like one of my really main activities since then. Really, it has just we have many ideas together. We're going to do a bigger ensemble also starting from next year with young people, young musicians, doing workshops and stuff like that, master classes, and then working on the music together. And so it's such a gift to work with her. The energy, we both like to rehearse, which is good.
We rehearse a lot sometimes.
And it's just the how do you call the level of what she wants to have in the music is just it's always 500%. It's there's no falling asleep. It's go. So it's always new ideas, always trying to do bringing something new in the music, surprise yourself. So it's just it's such a joy.
That's beautiful. That you reconnected. Strange coincidences. I mean, what's the story of this atelier? I read a little bit on your website, but what's the history of this place? And I mean, this is something you started, right, years ago. And...
It's actually not a place. It's my. I mean, it's more of a platform that I created with some friends in France, in Reims, where it's a structure that can to get support for my projects and connect with the local cultural institutions also. It has to do also with the fact that in France you need a structure somehow to
apply to stuff,
to do applications, to exist, as a musician with a but it was a good thing for me because I had to really think about what I want, and also not in real long term, but in a at least midterm, because you can do applications for like 2 years period, so you can anticipate a bit what you want to do, and you have to be in exchange with people who, you know, I'm working with someone who is doing the administrative side, but also it's a constant exchange, you know, about the artistic side as well. So it's you know, writing what it's all about, and this, you know, developing ideas. It's actually, it was for me quite good, and it's actually Vincent Courtois. He made his company. It's called La Compagnie de l'Imprévu. And so I started mine a couple of years later, just seeing how that it not only a structure for to get to for applications, but it just somehow structured my artistic work as well, I would say.
Yeah, that's important. We need that. Yeah. Speaking of which, like, what are your projects for the upcoming months or weeks or whatever? I mean, obviously you have so many new albums with Aki, the Ellington stuff, and Das Kapital has a new one. Are you going to promote these albums, or like some gigs coming up, or?
Yeah, with Aki we are playing some festivals now. We're playing in Germany in Peitz Festival, and we're playing some festivals, and we're playing in Switzerland and Villingen, and then we're playing in Japan in October. We're having 2 weeks tour. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's fantastic. And you know, I have this. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a sextet, French-German sextet. It's called Thérapie de Couple.
No, I haven't.
Couple therapy. Oh, you haven't heard of it? Okay.
You have an album out already, or?
No, we are going to record that in Budapest in January.
Oh, fantastic.
But it was last year. You know the Jazz Ahead.
Yeah.
In Bremen, they offered me this opportunity to create a French-German band for the Jazz Ahead last year. So we played that project for the first time at the Jazz Ahead in April 23, and it's a sextet with 3 Germans and 3 French. So it's Theo Cicaldi on the violin, Vincent Courtois,
beautiful,
and Hélène Duret, who's a bass clarinet and clarinet player, and then it's Robert Lucaccio on the bass. I don't know if you know him. No. Eva Klesse, she's a drummer from Germany. Fantastic. So that was the concert we did was quite good, and there were many organizers in that room, and so we had for a sextet, let's say, we had a lot of propositions. So the next one is Saalfelden.
Oh, fantastic! Okay.
Yeah, and now we have a couple more, and then we record in January. So that's a very important sextet actually for me, a new project, and it's really nice. It turned out very nicely. And then I have a trio album coming out with Hammond organ.
Really?
Hammond, yeah, B3. I never did that.
Wow.
It was an idea.
Okay.
It was this, you know, in the COVID time, it was an idea just popped up. So
interesting.
So
okay.
I started to work with Antonin Rayon. He's from France. He works with Pifarelli a lot.
Ah, really? Okay.
As a piano player, he's also a piano player. He's really interesting, and and Jim Hart on drums this time. So we recorded that. We recorded in January this year in Budapest, and it's coming out in January next year. So it's quite different somehow. You know, it's a different thing. But it was really nice to do it, and I think it's a nice recording. And yeah, that's already not bad.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. I'm looking forward to the sextet actually, because it's so rare to hear you in your own bands with larger, you know, it's mostly trios, and so
exactly. For me, that was really it came by surprise. You know, they called me and you want to do a band. It was really unbelievable. You know, they paid all the rehearsals, and I got a fee for writing the music.
That's,
you know, it's
amazing.
It's like
rare.
Wow, okay, life is good. You know. So that was, but that was like interesting, like for composing, because I also had tried to imagine how this is going to sound. It was a bit more difficult, even though I know some of the musicians quite well. But this thing evolved through the process of rehearsing, because we couldn't rehearse from beginning together, because I wrote an email to everybody saying, when are you free between September and April? You know, I wrote them, and then I made like an Excel thing and there was exactly one day where everybody was free together.
Oh, shit, man.
Yeah, so I had to kind of do small rehearsals, and then the music evolved through that, which was really good. Actually, I never worked like that. It was, you know, once again, if you accept what's happening and work with that, then some really good things can come out of that.
Definitely. Fantastic, man. Looking forward.
Yeah.
Cool. Daniel, I will not take more of your time, but thanks for sharing some of these thoughts, man. I appreciate
thank you. And thanks for having
you're around in Slovenia or in Austria, drop me a line and let me know if you have a gig or something. I live like half an hour south of Graz in Austria, so it's
okay, great.
Region, so let me know.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, I'll definitely keep in touch. Okay, thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Okay, thanks.